Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It's the start of a new week. I thought we'd start with a nice story of someone who's happy. That someone is Jackie Baillie of Labour. She says the prospect of winning 28 seats and taking them away from SNP is absolutely delicious. And it's likely to be more than 28 in reality, of course, because as time goes on, the SNP are becoming less popular. More and more people are increasingly seeing through them, and they don't like what they see. Of course, the main problem they also have, this is the SNP, is that they have Humza Yousaf as, and I'm going to use the word leader quite inappropriately, but they have him at the top, keeping the seat warm. People don't like him, he's not popular, even within the SNP. He scraped over the line with 52%, but that was then, 6 months ago, and the times they are a-changing. And it now seems that there will be leadership contests coming, or at least challenges, and that he's likely to lose his position. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? Anyway, we'll take a look at this story, see why Jackie Baillie is sort of looking with glee at the downfall of the SNP, and see what she's proposing will be, by way of change. But to be honest, anything has got to be better than the status quo. Here goes. Jackie Baillie calls the SNP downfall delicious as she targets 28 Westminster seats, and as I say, probably more. The notorious scourge of the Nats, the Scottish Labour Deputy Leader, was on good form at the UK Labour conference as she highlighted that they were now targeting even more SNP seats in the wake of the thrashing at Rutherglen and Hamilton West. I know I've mentioned it before, but it's still worth repeating. Where Professor John Curtis said a 10% swing to Labour would be, astonishing, it would please Labour no end, to more than double that. I mean, it put Labour in such a good position, but it's utterly demoralised the SNP. They've never had defeat like that. They're stunned. They're open-mouthed stunned. And of course, it's exactly the sort of thing that Humza Yousaf needs as he's about to go and have the SNP conference. It's not going to be good, is it? He's going to have squeaky bum time, as they say. Anyway, Scottish Labour leader, deputy leader, not yet, soon, deputy leader Dame Jackie Baillie called the downfall of the SNP delicious, as she claimed that the party were targeting 28 Westminster seats at the next general election. Now, that would be immense when you consider what their starting base is, which is two now, isn't it? They 100% increase in their seats. Anyway, she made the comments during the Scotland Friends of Labour fringe meeting at the party's UK conference. Buoyed by Michael Shank's crashing win in Rutherglen and Hamilton West, I mean, literally out of nowhere, we knew he'd win, but everyone said it's going to be close. It wasn't even close, was it? It was landslide. Anyway, it's where he received 58% of the total vote. Miss Baillie could barely keep the smile off her face as she made a rallying call to members and called for closer links between the Labour UK government and a potential Labour Scottish government. And I wouldn't bet against Scotland forming the next government of Scotland. Certainly, if this sort of keeps happening with that kind of swing, you're going to have a Scottish government in Scotland. A Labour government in Scotland. Anyway, she also detailed how the thrashing of the SNP with a 20% swing to Labour was almost unbelievable. Nobody foresaw it. Like I say, even the experts, even the likes of John Curtis and that, just didn't see it at all. Now, undoubtedly, there was tactical voting. There was Tories voting for Labour simply to ensure that the SNP didn't get in. It wasn't the Tory vote. They weren't voting for Labour. They were voting against the SNP. And of course, this tactical voting is what's absolutely important at the next general election. And I've got to say to anyone who's a Labour voter in a strong Tories challenging seat, in other words, where it's an SNP incumbent, but it's obvious that the Tories are the strongest, challengers. Labour voters, hold your nose, vote Tory, one election, get the SNP out. It's very, very important. Because one of the other things is, and this is not appreciated often, is that if you can reduce the number of seats that the SNP have at Parliament, their central funding that they receive from Parliament falls massively. And they need that funding to actually run the whole of the SNP, including up in Scotland. It isn't just for the money that goes to the parliamentary body in Westminster. They a lot of that goes up to central funding. Without that money, they are massively out of pocket to the point of they may not be able to continue. They'll be bankrupt. That would be a shame, wouldn't it? You know, nice party. Shame if anything happened to its funding. Anyway, Miss Baillie said voters were so energised by the Labour Party, it was truly extraordinary. Yeah, but Jackie, be aware, it was Tories voting against the SNP. It won't hold everywhere. But it's still an amazing win, don't get me wrong. Anyway, so we're so grateful to you for doing that, speaking to the delegates. Let me tell you what I think this unlocks. Because yes, it's great to give Ian Murray a friend. We've doubled the size of the Scottish Parliamentary Labour Party. So, but what this truly unlocks is the number of seats. And as much as I love Professor John Curtis, I'm not going to claim that we will win 42 seats in Scotland. He is saying we will, but we're not going to be complacent at all. We will work so hard coming into the general election, she said, to make sure we win more seats than we have now. I think that's more or less assured, isn't it? She said, if I told you that I start the year off with 6 targets, let me tell you we've now selected in about 28 target seats. We will set out to make that a reality. Please be assured that there will be no complacency on our part, but the impact on the SNP will be delicious. Now, some of the seats they're targeting are major seats, and certainly well within the reach. Even at a 10% swing, never mind the 20% you've seen, even with a 10% swing to Labour, you're losing some big names, including Beryl. You know, Stephen Flynn could lose his seat, and he's the he's the SNP leader at Westminster. I mean, that's the end of him, isn't it? If he goes, what the hell's he going to do? It's just unbelievable that this swing has happened. Anyway, the SNP have spiralled into a mini meltdown since the crushing defeat, with Humza Yousaf potentially facing a coup within. It's undoubtedly, we've looked at this, and you had, oh, come on, brain, you can do this. What was his name? Fergus, right? Fergus Ewing yesterday. He's basically saying that Humza's gone by Christmas if he doesn't turn it around. I think he's being very generous. But if you read the subtext, you read between the lines of what he was actually saying, what he's actually saying is Humza needs to go now. He was giving the, I think if he doesn't pick it up, it wasn't. He fired the starting pistol on a new leadership race. And we all know who he is going to sort of push and stand behind. So good luck to her. Anyway, the Scottish Greens have also come under fire, with many within the independence movement calling them to be axed as coalition partners. Particularly the backbenchers. In Holyrood, the SNP backbenchers in Holyrood are also looking and thinking, in two and a bit years' time, there's an election. They know that they're going to lose their seats. They're going to lose, their positions. And they're saying it's all part of the problem, is that the Greens' policies are so controversial and so anti-growth and so anti what even the SNP stands for, but they're forced to accept it. And Humza Yousaf, and they keep saying that Humza Yousaf lose it, but of course he can't. He's given his backing to the Greens, and so to suddenly cut them loose now would show that he was wrong. And he cannot abide being wrong. He cannot allow people to think he was wrong, because it would make him look weak. Well, I've got news for you, Humza. You are weak, and people perceive you as weak. Do something strong. Fire the Greens. Form your minority government. Run it. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Because nobody cares about Humza Yousaf. Anyway, Miss Baillie, who's been the scourge of nationalists for many years, could not help herself as she described the disillusionment from long-term SNP voters on the doorsteps of Rutherglen and Hamilton West, with many switching their allegiance to Labour. She added, the SNP had 101 excuses, almost a single transferable excuse as well. First, it was Margaret Ferrier, although the SNP candidate said it wasn't. Then it was Operation Branch Form. But that was nothing to do with that. And indeed, again, Katie Loudon kept saying, no, nobody's mentioning this on the doorstep. No, no, no. It's nothing to do with the investigation. No, people are more concerned with the cost of living crisis. She lied. And then yesterday you have Hamza Yousaf saying, no, it was all to do with the police. Well, you can't have it both ways, mate. You know. Anyway, they'll say it was the weather. They say it was the low turnout. They were saying everything. There was a million excuses. And the fact is, there's one excuse. Hamza Yousaf, so loathed, people just don't like him. And the fact that he doesn't have the ability to lead the party. He's weak. We see that with Mary Black the other day. He's weak. He's spineless. He's a jellyfish. He's not a leader. And of course, when you have an organisation that has no leadership, the organisation falls apart. There's civil wars, there's breakdown, there's chaos, there's factional infighting. There's no direction. It's completely directionless. And without it, you know, what hope have you got? And they're incapable of coming up with their own ideas, which is why they keep stealing all the ideas from the Greens. The trouble is that the Greens' ideas are sheer madness. Never mind, it's a terrible thing to see. Possibly. Anyway, I shall stop there and come up. Over the sort of next couple of months, we have obviously October, you've got the clocks going back, you've got Halloween, you hit November, you're on the run up to Christmas. They'll get Christmas and New Year out of the way, and I think, say the 6th of January, when everyone's going back to work, or 6th or 7th of January, whatever it is this year, when everyone's going back to work, I think at Westminster, all minds will be focused laser-like on the election. I think at that point then you'll be on a war footing within all the parties, and I think it's going to be a lot of politicking. I don't think there'll be too much before Christmas, but I think once Christmas is out of the way, there'll be all this politicking, all this pushing, because it looks increasingly, more or less certain now, of a May election. It was either going to be May or October next year, but the way it's going, it's looking almost certainly like it's going to be a May election. And it means that come, let's say the 8th of May or whenever the election is, I can't remember what date it would be, but whenever that date in early May is, the SNP will dissolve. There'll be so few seats at Westminster, they won't be getting anything like the money that they're getting at the moment. The repercussions will be flying. There'll be a lot of infighting. There'll be a lot of people angry that they've lost their seats. The divisions will open up. And of course, with the lack of funds, it may well be that they can't afford to even fight the election properly. And that's what's going to happen. These 28 seats that Jackie Baillie's pushing, they know that they've got to save the seats that they can. And that costs money. They don't have the money to fight all 28. So they're basically going to look at the ones they can afford and the ones they can't afford and just let the ones they can't afford go. Write them off. Just go, what can we do? We haven't got the money to spend on leaflets, on campaigns, on this and that and the other. And so I think, you know, this general election is going to be an absolute terminal destruction of the SNP. And I can't wait. Bring it on. Bring it on. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. First video of the week. Very kind of you. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. And I'm going to say this. Anyone who is caught up in the bad weather, the rains and the floods, my heart bleeds for it. Bloody awful. I've seen the pictures on the TV. What I'm surprised is how many people in Scotland own canoes. Always, the Greens have got their way. No one's in a car. They're all canoeing down the road. Anyway, hope everything's okay for you all. Till next time, bye-bye.